The hammer clicked, the pressure built, and for a brief moment, pure bliss entered his head. Jeremy woke with his heart pounding and a deep gasp. He had the dream again. He sat up in bed slowly, making sure not to wake Sarah. He was unsure if it had started as a dream, an intrusive thought, or perhaps some sort of vision playing over and over again in his head for months now. He gently shed the warm covers to make some coffee as the image played in his head again. He would always watch as if from outside his own body, feeling the thoughts of the distant person he recognized as himself. The hum of the coffee grinder did little to obstruct the vision in his mind. He watched his own hand raise the gun to his own head from a distance. The smell of his coffee always made Sarah stir from her sleep. The gentle sounds she'd make used to make him smile. The only smile he ever had anymore, ever felt anymore, was in that dream. That eerie, serene smile right before the pull of the trigger. "Thanks for the coffee, hun." Sarah softly pressed her lips to his cheek. "Of course. My pleasure, sweetheart." Jeremy's voice croaked flatly back. He smiled along with himself in his vision. He couldn't remember how it had started, nor which came first. Had the dream come first and slowly drained his joy and sense of feeling from him? Or had the dream been the inevitable result his mind had given him from his lack of emotion? It hardly mattered to him at this point. Now he was only happy that he still had the vision, still felt something every day. He would briefly feel ashamed that the sweetness and kindness of his fiancée no longer made him feel anything. But then the vision would play in his mind again and bring the smile he wished Sarah could give him again. Jeremy had hoped it was just a slump and would fade. He tried talking to Sarah about it, to his friends, to his family, but it was like talking to paper cutouts. They'd only offer up hollow sentiments of encouragement and steer the conversation away from such things, all claiming to know him better than he knew himself, and rest assured he'd be back to smiling and laughing in no time at all. Jeremy had noticed a few weeks ago, but seeing Sarah's bare hand this morning reminded him. "Hey, sweetheart, where's your ring?" "Oh, I guess I don't know." She laughed sweetly. "I'm sure it will turn up. Isn't it bad luck or something to lose an engagement ring?" "Oh, it's just a ring. I told you ages ago you could propose with a candy ring and I wouldn't care. Our love for each other is above all that nonsense. Besides, things always have a funny way of finding their way back to me, remember?" She kissed him reassuringly as she left for work. There was kindness in her voice, and even passion in her kiss. Jeremy recognized it, but he couldn't feel it reflected in his own heart. Jeremy didn't like to think about actually bringing the vision to fruition. He knew the guilt and shame of leaving Sarah and his friends and family with such a void in their lives would be cruel, and he could never bear to be a cruel man. He just never had the heart for it. But as time had passed, even guilt and shame had begun to numb to him. Still, he never once even glanced at his old handgun in the closet. In an attempt to cope with the vision, Jeremy had formed a habit of casually, listlessly searching online for the things that articulated what he was thinking, like die without dying, feel anything again, or replacing yourself. That last one turned up one curious result, highlighted in purple, the only one that had shown signs of being previously visited. A cheap article that seemed to promise everything he never knew he wanted. Leave behind the perfect you for your loved ones, someone to take your place when you are gone. A local address was the only real information given. Morbid curiosity rose in him. He wondered what cheap trick they would try to sell him. It might actually make him laugh again. A corny slideshow of his life, a life-size doll replica, or maybe even just an undertaker with a really disturbing sense of humor. Jeremy followed the address to an old, short building squeezed between oppressive apartment complexes. The surrounding passers-by didn't even seem to notice it. He entered the building with no resistance. A quick but winding path down a couple staircases and corners was carved out from various blocked halls and locked doors. He finally arrived in a musty basement, An ominous shiver ran through him and reassured him he had reached his destination. Jeremy was greeted by a thin man with thinner hair, his eyes dark and hidden in his sunken sockets. "Welcome. You have come for our services, correct?" Jeremy was hesitant to answer, but was curious. "Yeah, I think so. I found your information online and... Well, what's the trick?" Jeremy curtly asked. The man smiled gently and knowingly. "Rest assured, there is no trick. We give your loved ones a you to leave behind." Jeremy rolled his eyes. "How does it work? Like an actor or a..." The man quickly and sternly cut Jeremy off. "There is no trick." Okay, take it easy. I meant no offense. So, how does it work then? "I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain the details of our profane chemistry and ancient calculus that allows us to provide our services. Your only concern is that there will be another you to leave behind." The thin man began to turn away contemptuously. Jeremy almost let him, but that nagging curiosity... "Wait, so how much are you asking for?" The man smiled even wider than before, as if expectant of Jeremy's inevitable curiosity. "We only require a precious possession from you." "So no cost? Just something of mine?" "Most would call a truly precious possession quite a high cost. But if that's how you want to look at it, that's your business. That is what we will require." "Okay." Jeremy pulled out something from his pocket, a silly keychain an old friend had once gotten him on vacation. The thin man looked at it with disgust. "This is not a precious item to you. I think you know this. Do not waste my time." Okay. Can I come back tomorrow?" "That is only natural. We can use the time to prepare for you." Jeremy could not get out of there fast enough, and yet somehow the whole experience hung in his head along with his vision. It made his heart race. He smiled. Jeremy tried to put the entire experience out of his head, but like his recurring dream, it too stuck in his head, albeit not as strongly, vividly, or frequently. That night, he was only able to stop thinking and finally sleep when Sarah had amorously bit at his ear, eventually instigating a passionate embrace and lovemaking. Even in such a sound sleep, Jeremy's dreams returned to him. He watched from afar as he smiled eerily, calmly, and serenely took a gun to his own head and pulled the trigger. His heart pounded even harder and more excitedly than before he had drifted off to sleep with Sarah in his arms. The next morning, Jeremy had woken Sarah by rummaging through the kitchen drawers instead of with waiting coffee. "Hey, sweetheart, have you seen that locket with our pictures in it?" "You mean the one your mom gave us for Christmas when we first started dating? Wasn't that kind of a corny joke gift?" "Yeah, but I just could have sworn I left it in one of these kitchen drawers." "I'm sure it'll turn up." Sarah smiled and kissed Jeremy on the neck. "Right, yeah." After making the morning coffee and Sarah left for work, Jeremy went back to digging through the drawers of the kitchen. He did finally find something that almost brought a smile back to his face. An old bottle cap pin Sarah had made for him as a good luck charm when he had once had an especially bad day. As Jeremy reached for the door, pin in his pocket, he shuddered, thinking of that musty building again. Something about that place, even as gentle and unthreatening as that thin man was, something didn't feel right about him. Jeremy pulled the old handgun from his closet. He refused to go back to a place like that unprepared. He hoped he would not have to defend himself, but he just felt safer going with it. When he arrived, the thin man greeted him with a thin smile and a dubious comment. "Our timing could not be more perfect to expect you." Jeremy had little time to feel any of the usual unease and was quickly thrown into complete shock. In the small room, strapped to a table, mounted 3/4 upright, was a perfect copy of himself, staring blankly back at him. It was not a doll or a mannequin. It was a person. And Jeremy's eyes frantically inspected his doppelganger. Every mark, every scar and freckle was there. Before he could even process what he was seeing, and his sight could blur from either confusion or shock or disbelief, the thin man sternly forbid it with his curt demand. The item. Jeremy's eyes were torn from his copy to the thin man. What? The thin man held out his hand expectantly. Your precious item. Now, if you please. Jeremy fumbled for a moment to pull the bauble from his pocket and nearly dropped it as he handed it over. The thin man's hand wrapped and closed around it fluidly with a covetous, tightening grip. A thin, wide smile appeared on his face again. Perfect. You will be functioning within the hour. He turned his back to Jeremy and returned to his work. And the old self is free to do as it wishes. Cast off whatever shackles have previously burdened it. Jeremy was free in whatever way it wishes. Couldn't be. It couldn't be that simple, could it? Jeremy thought to himself. The vision played in front of his eyes once again. The joy he felt, the only thing left to feel, the only way left for him to feel joy at all. Jeremy didn't care how or why. All reason left him at the sight of his doppelganger. The only thing he felt was the smile from his dream. His heart was racing in his chest. His arm reached for his handgun, and his hand held it before he was even aware of it. His smile, his bliss were intoxicating, infectious. Jeremy put the barrel of the gun to his temple, just like in his dreams. He was free of everything. Responsibility of his old life, guilt of leaving his lover and what few family there was to grieve. They'd be happier now, with a him that could feel again. The void and the nothing he constantly felt would finally end. He finally felt happy again, hopeful. Truly he did. There would be no tears, not from him, not from them. Only smiles, only bliss. And with that, his old self pulled the trigger, emptying his mind into an explosive crimson mist unto the world. The light began to grow in the eyes of Jeremy's new self, still strapped down, and the vision of his first new sight played in front of his eyes over and over again. The infectious, intoxicating smile he wore as he watched himself from afar.